Okay, so remember that they're changing my voice. Now, this commenter, average American, and I'm sure all the viewers probably know that I'm right because they work for the government too, at this point, okay, is a government agent, right? They're playing stupid about a great many things. I say they're changing my voice at the beginning of every video, right? I'm targeted. So if my videos are confusing, it's because I'm targeted, but they're not that confusing when I review it. It's easy to see what I'm saying. Secondly, you come off in a condescending manner, and you have no right to do so, right? You're telling it like a white supremacist who doesn't understand the nature of religion. Okay, the nature of religion is it comes from black African people who have a very deep spiritual nature. They're the first people who evolved outside of the normal. Like, just like you fail to kind of separate yourself from the construct. Okay, you don't have the heart, you don't have the wisdom, you don't have the depth of understanding, you don't have the warrior prowess. Neither do other groups of people. And I'm not, I'm part white. I'm not saying this to be racist or something. They just don't, right? We see the Lion King. It takes place in Africa. Black Panther. Compare that to Superman or Thor or the Riddler or Batman. These guys are shallow. The Black Panther is deep, and of course the Panther is a large cat, a predatory cat, just like the lion, right? And these movies are made more deep, and it's about Africans, right? So the nature of religion is deep. You look at things in terms of like science or something, and you don't understand it. And so when it goes to Nimrod, right, my argument isn't about the story, it's about the reality of the situation. In reality, Nimrod is superimposed on African martial art kings, because who kind of marshaled Africans together? It wasn't an evil person. It wasn't Ham's kind of mediocre. He begets Kush, they're kind of mediocre. And then here comes Nimrod, who's this great warrior, right? What was the reality of the situation? Black Africans begot other black Africans, and somewhere along the line, there's this great martial warrior African from the exact way they're breeding and why, and the groups they're breaking down in, etc. And that kind of warrior prowess spread through the Middle East, right? So if you look at it in terms of the flood, what's it superimposed on? It's superimposed on certain events that occur, a flood of wisdom, a flood of warrior spirit, and so on and so forth. And then this guy leads the charge, and he says, this is how it's going to be. Then when the Assyrians and what people are referred to as Aryans, right? They're the quote unquote nobles. They're not really nobles. They're like mages and sages type. They don't do magic. They're magic trip types. So I'm gonna keep it short because you've accused me of, basically being wrong and being too confusing to understand. So address these points. One is that the story is superimposed on reality. You somewhat admit that by saying that it's encrypted, which means that it's a confusing story that's superimposed on reality. Then you say that I'm being confusing. What I'm saying is much more straightforward than the Bible. So you're being intellectually dishonest, you're being disingenuous. Okay. And then Nimrod, right? When we look at capoeira versus Western, war arts, like the colonists, whether they're the French or the Dutch or the British or whatever, they were underhanded with malicious intent. But you look at capoeira, it was closer to righteous intent. So as we look at the spectrum of peoples and the expression of righteousness in its true form versus the Western theater arts, we see definitively it wasn't the whites, the Jews, or the LGBT that gave us religion and martial arts in its true form. It's black Africans. I'd love to hear you say your counter argument. Okay, really quickly, what this commenter did was tantamount to saying, oh, that black African narrative must be rubbish, or it is, rather, is what he's saying, subtly and otherwise. And you should listen to David Duke, because everyone knows the so-called scientists and experts are white supremacists, whether we're talking about the white, Jewish, or LGBT supremacists, and they have some kind of unholy alliance. Whether we're talking about the church or the science departments in Harvard, Yale, that's what it is, right? It's Eurocentrism. They're trying to make it centered around European mythology, European culture, European philosophies and energies, and even sex lives and ways of thinking, and European reproduction. Okay, and that's why the token minorities are so elevated, right? Because they're more Eurocentric than the other minorities. And everyone knows this. So when you say some nonsensical, partially intellectual jargon, partially just rubbish argument, and you point away from the obvious facts, that when we're talking about religion or martial arts, or we're talking about true love, there's certain types of black people go beyond everyone else and are the experts, then you're just being a racist. That's like, what you're doing is like saying to Michael Jordan, hey, in order to understand Michael Jordan, you should go ask, Donald Trump. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. You say, why? Because I'm a black man? Yeah, that's exactly why. But they say it in a roundabout manner. And they use proxies, right? They say it a little here, a little there, and it's easy to piece it together. Yeah, that's the tradition of fraternities like the Klan. They would rub you wrong way a little bit here, a little bit there to set you up, right? It all kind of comes together as a clear-cut picture of a concerted effort by white supremacists to twist and abuse people to their own extreme disgrace, and it causes them to live despicable lives and so on and so forth.